and welcome to day 2 of the ET Future of Education Mini Summit. The Future series includes future of jobs, work, and education. The series is our attempt to drive the dialogue on the transformation underway and needed in education systems, learning formats, and experiences to prepare for the future of jobs and to drive sustainable growth for businesses. The keynotes and panel discussions also attempt to showcase how organizations and individuals are adapting to new opportunities in learning and development and to constantly evolving demands and the definitions of work and the workplace. In this keynote fireside, I'm very happy to welcome Mayank Kumar, who is the co-founder and MD of UpGrad and chair of India EdTech Consortium, to delve into why India's national digital universities could be its next UPI moment. Mayank, welcome to Economic Times.
Thanks. Thank you, Melanie, for having me here today.
All right. The launch of India's first digital university, known as NDU, or the National Digital University, is a one of its kind initiative, and it was announced in this budget. The India EdTech Consortium has welcomed it, and it's called it India's next UPI moment. So, what is it about NDU that makes you believe that it could have the sort of impact that UPI has had?
No, sure. So, Melanie, I do believe that's a very, very strong move, just for 2-3 reasons. One, to give you a sense that in India, for every child in the age group of 4 to 18 who should be in school, roughly about 95-100% of them are in school. So they're going to school because of all the initiatives that the government has taken. But essentially, only 1 in 4 individuals end up going to any kind of higher education. So for the two of us who are speaking, there are about 6 other people of similar age group, similar background at that point of time who haven't accessed higher education so far. So, and for India to grow its gross enrollment ratio of 25% to go to 50%, which is a big, big delta move, we can't afford to open up so many institutions and so many universities. And therefore, NDU is a very, very strong initiative where India has to take the same leapfrogging that we did from landline phones to mobile, where we just shifted one generation completely. I think the same shift has to happen because the next generation of learners coming in may not necessarily afford to go to an offline or physical brick and mortar institution. And the part 1 that NDU definitely solves for is giving access to those who may not have access to education, and sort of ensure that India's GR ratio sort of improves. The second thing that NDU does very interestingly, Melanie, is that if you notice in India, from the background that all of us come from, after our 12th, we go for our undergrad education or postgrad education, so on and so forth. Many individuals today, after their 12th, they drop out because from the societal pressure perspective, they have to study. And if they have to start working and earn something for their families. If they are working and earning something for the families, they drop out of higher education completely. NDU gives them the opportunity of coming back into the education ecosystem after working for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and still complete their graduation and undergraduation and be able to get a more respectable job in the ecosystem where they're coming from. The third thing, even those guys who get into education system, what happens is they come in and they drop out. Because after a year or 2, they realize that life has taken over. I am needed back in the family. My agricultural ecosystem is not supporting me. And therefore, I have to take a break. So NDU has come up with a very unique concept of ABC, Academic Bank of Credits. So whatever that you study at a university can be transferred to NDU, or whatever that you have studied in NDU can be transferred back to a separate university, such that the person can come in anytime, drop out, but not lose the work that they have done in that period. So in some, they have created a very unique infrastructure where all the credits are held together, people coming in, getting out, moving in, moving out, etc. So it's a very interesting model that has been created and conceptualized by the government, which will ensure that our participation in education, higher education goes up, our ability for people to complete their higher education increases, and we are able to increase capacity without going through the capex and infrastructure development. So instead of opening bank, we went via UPI. instead of working with multiple banks and multiple brick and mortar institutions, there was a one entity of UPI which was covered with everything. Similar to that is where NDU will come and play an important role. And the decentralization of everything is quite a unique play that the government has come out with. Sorry for the long answer, but that's just it's an interesting topic, and there's a lot of potential sort of optionality coming out of this NDU ecosystem that the government is working on.
No, Mayank, thank you for that answer. And also, I think, there are a lot of points that you made which we'll sort of get into individually. But it really took a pandemic to spur, UPI, or for, it to become so sort of widespread, or, to catch people's imaginations, and also use and, sort of get into day-to-day use. What will it take for us to be able to spur the adoption of NDU?
So I sometimes take a see. Look, I think what happened was a demonetization leading to a UPI growth, and pandemic sort of further fostered it. But when I look at the NDU growth, I believe that sometimes you have to ask the question: do we have a choice? If we do not have a choice, then this is the way out. If India cannot afford to produce more and more graduates who are highly skilled and ready to be joining the workforce by setting up brick and mortar institution, we do not have a choice but to go to online. If
Right.
individuals do not have a choice of leaving their job, let's say I become a truck driver and I need to run and drive my truck throughout, but I still want to get my BCom. I do not have a choice but to look at NDU to sort of come into the ecosystem. So India, just to give you context, this is, if you ask somebody, and most of the places when you go out, Melanie, you will ask, what have you done? Where did you study from? Where did your parents study from? And if you ask about the grandparents, a lot of individuals that you will meet, grandparents may not have gone to higher education also. So this is the first time many individuals in these generations are coming to higher education as the first generation higher education learner. And
Right.
for them, online is the only choice out. And that's why I sometimes do not expect the stars to align. I sometimes just ask the question, do we have a choice? If we do not have a choice, then this is it. But pandemic has definitely helped. And going forward with the way future of work is emerging, where people will be working as gig economy and working on one job at one point of time, shifting jobs on an ongoing basis, an online university, a digital university will play a very critical role in solving for the talent demand that the Indian economy requires, and NDU will play an important role in that.
All right. But there's one thing about digital learning, right? Like, you have to be self-motivated. You also have to be able to come to the class. It's an online class, so you should be able to, sort of discipline yourself. With an NDU, when of course, it's granting people the flexibility. There's also fungibility. Like, you can use, your tokens or your degrees, the credits that you get into from a university system, that can be used in an NDU. Something that you get out of an NDU can be used into a university system. So that sort of freedom is there. But, again, playing the devil's advocate, the kind of discipline that is required, again, in terms of infrastructure, for instance, we will need the connectivity to be there. How do you see all of that happening?
So I think a very good question, because I think we should always look at why it will not work. And then, yes, if you do not have a choice, it has to work. But there are hindrances that you rightly mentioned, whether it is of infra or human motivation. So let me cover the human motivation aspect first, Melanie. You're right that education is not like Netflix. You can go home and binge watch a new episode coming out on any of the platforms, but you cannot binge watch economics 101. You cannot binge watch sociology 101. You cannot binge watch mathematics or physics 101, because education requires a heavy load. I mean, you don't hear somebody coming in, कल यार मैं रात को 4 बजे बैठा 10 बजे बैठा था, सुबह 8 बजे तक I was just doing computer science and coding 101 or Python 101. These things are very difficult to happen, because when you're learning, it requires a little bit of cognitive overload. And therefore, an interesting part of NDU is the concept of mentor and local hub and spoke methodology, where government is encouraging various institutions and universities to provide localized mentors. See, education is like eating vegetable. Till you slap somebody to eat your vegetable, nobody wants to eat it on their own. So you require somebody to slap somebody And that's where the mentors come and play a very important role. If you think of your own sort of journey, many a times all of us take up a gym membership. We take up in the month of January as a New Year resolution, and by the time we reach February and March, we slowly start slipping out, because at that point of time, what takes us through the full year of journey of a gym is a good coach, a good gym instructor who will push you hard and say, Miloni, come on, let's do it one more time. And you can push yourself. I think that concept of distributed network of mentors and coaches will play a very, very important part in bringing that motivation level and ensuring that the person is getting pushed in the right direction. And I also believe that the outcome at the end of completion of the program will also keep the individual continuing. But the good part is, even if the motivation drops, for example, for whatever reason, I just decided that, look, now it's been 6 months, one semester, I just want to take a break. Go ahead and take a break, because you can come back again. So I think in that context, with the local mentor and the ability and the flexibility that the institution provide, I do believe that this has to sort of, people have to come together and form the right connect and break away any kind of anonymity in the system. Because, for example, I mean, if nobody has seen you getting in the institution, it's very easy for you to get out. And therefore, in online, it's very easy for you to get in because nobody knows. But in an offline institution, if you get in, your chachaji, your taoji, your taiji, everybody knows that you have gotten into a university. So it's very difficult for you to drop out. But if you take out anonymity in the online context, it will be very difficult for the person to take out and get out of the system. So I think that those elements are built into the NDU eco infra, and I believe that that's going to help in completion and ensuring completion happens at a large level. On your other question on infra and accessibility and network, yes, there are challenges, but I do believe that the pace at which the infra is growing of digital infra, and whether it's 4G coming to 5G and getting to the last mile connectivity, I think India is miles ahead of anything. If you ask me today, when I go outside India, I really feel trouble because I'm not able to use the digital payment infrastructure, which is so well developed in India, in any other country outside India. And I expect that the infra development will definitely overcome the challenges of delivery of high quality education, because even today, I mean, I access an IPL or a World Cup cricket across different platforms, even at a low megabyte or low sort of network domain. So I do believe that that should not be a question area, because that will surpass, and then the systems, there's a long way to go. Infra is here, online education is here. So even if the online education comes to this level, infra will continue to increase and improve over a period of time.
All right. Mayank, that's good to know. In the sense, yes, of course, we have 5G coming in. There's this entire policy of BharatNet. So yes, that is going to sort of get spurred. Access hopefully should not be so much of a challenge, and we'll sort that out, as you say. But there's another question that comes to my mind. Like right now, I think the National Education Policy of 2020 outlined a goal of achieving 50% gross enrollment ratio, GR, something that you mentioned, by 2030. So first of all, I want to understand if that is the right metric for us to be able to see whether, we've managed to get education and higher education across the wide swath of India's population. That's number one. The reason I ask is because, very often we have the educated, uneducated, in the sense that people who, even right now, we've got a lot of data that says that, there are kids who are in 5th grade, 8th grade, but their math skills are still only on par with kids who are in grade 3 and grade 5. And I think that continues kind of through as you go, even in higher education system. So this entire having this metric of the gross enrollment ratio, what do you think about that?
Sure.
And also, will this really mean that we'll be able to get the quality education and solve the problem when it comes to not employment but employability?
Correct. No, I think it's a very good question, because it's always, sometimes it could lead to influx or sort of flooding up of the market with too many underemployed graduates, or people coming in, but they do not have enough jobs or skills to be relevant in the ecosystem. But here's my take, Miloni. If you plot any country's GDP per capita adjusted for PPP, which is the purchasing parity, the one metric that defines the growth of GDP per capita over a period of time is every country's gross enrollment ratio. If India has to aim to becoming a 5 trillion, $10 trillion economy, there is no other way of not, I mean, there's no way that we can reach to that level without having a 50%, 60% gross enrollment ratio. So if today we are sitting with about 20 million, 30 million higher education enrollment learner, and look, when I'm saying 50%, what does that mean? 1 in 2 individual is going through higher education. The second individual is not even going through higher education. And that's just in higher education ecosystem. I'm not even talking about further education or postgraduate education. And that basic level of education is required for the country to continue its growth trajectory. And I mean, if I look at China, which is currently already at 50, 60% plus, US is at about 80% plus, Korea is about 90% plus. If we have to be in the developed economy category, we do need individuals to be ready, skilled, and went through higher education. Now, look, higher education is not having degree, and higher education is also about having the right kind of skills that is needed for one to sort of do well in the program. And therefore, the kind of, if you read NEP also, the way they are rethinking about school education, the way they are rethinking about moving away from rote learning to more application-based learning, the way they're rethinking about the skill-based education and how do you include skills and be able to drive the growth and provide the individual with the right level of skills. So I think the higher education of tomorrow is going to be a right mix of academic inputs that are coming in as part of the education infra, along with the skill inputs. And you will start seeing the merging of education and skilling via that route. And you will see graduates coming out which are more skilled. Having said that, I can also tell you that once you move to that scale level, there is obviously going to be question marks on quality, because we are not as a country ready to solve all at one go. But is the step moving towards 50% gross enrollment ratio or 60% gross enrollment right one? Absolutely yes. Will we face challenges in terms of quality? Absolutely yes. As long as we are aware of these issues, we have to work towards solving for that rather than running away saying that, look, we can't solve for it and therefore might as well not aim for a high gross enrollment ratio.
All right. But, then what sort of a model do you see emerging, Mayank? So in the sense that, we'll have the NDUs, we'll have regular brick and mortar schools, colleges functioning, we'll have, platforms such as yours, who continue to impart. I mean, there will also be the apprenticeship model, the skilling, which will go on. So what is the kind of model that you're seeing actually emerge? Will everything sort of work together, synchronize with each other?
No, I think you will see the beauty of NDU and NEP is that it's sort of like a how do I say, it's sort of like a bank. You can come in, you can get out at any point of time, and therefore I think there is going to be a coming together of the ecosystem. I think partly that universities will work with a lot of technology providers or edtech companies. EdTech companies will support universities to sort of move up and launch some of the new programs and build capabilities. We'll also see universities accepting an EdTech program as part of the credit system. We'll also see EdTech companies accepting university credentials to sort of build and scale this up. So I think it's an ecosystem of coming together. You will have universities, you will have some skill providers, you will have EdTech companies coming in, you will have platforms and infrastructure companies coming in to build this ecosystem out. So I see this as the same way as when the road infrastructure was getting developed, the ecosystem had to come together. Even when the case of digital infrastructure for education is getting created, the ecosystem will come together, and we will leverage each other's leverage each other's strengths and ensure that the other weaknesses are getting covered. And that's how I personally believe the ecosystem will evolve. I don't think it's a one-trick pony will win everything. The more we collaborate, the more we come together, the more we sort of cross-subsidize each other's weaknesses and leverage on each other's strengths is when we see the magic happening in this space.
All right. So basically, you're saying, the future is one of collaboration. Uptrad is a pioneer in the online education revolution. How do you see NDU coexisting with the edtechs? Do you see direct competition, or Will there be a place where NDU can plug into edtechs like Upland?
No, I think as you're building the ecosystem, you rightly said one big problem is even the acceptability of online education, right? I mean, while we know that there is no other option, but people will have question marks. Look, is this the right thing for me to do? Can I learn online? Will the infrastructure be good? If I'm coming learning online, is this degree or credential even valued? And will corporates look at it? So I think there is going to be investment going in the ecosystem to build the credibility and build the acceptability of online education. And that's where public and private partnership could play a very important role in creating the acceptability. At the same time, I do believe that institutions and universities today have a very strong capability of running it offline. And when they're looking at going online, they will like to partner and they will look for partnership with various operators and various providers to ensure that we are bringing in the capabilities that EdTech have to support an existing universities to go online. So I think that you will see a collaboration happening where university and EdTech companies will come together where EdTech company can provide the platform, can support in content development, can facilitate what quote unquote government calls as technology service provider, and ensure that the universities are able to take their existing programs online and at scale. The third thing that we'll see, Miloni, is that a lot of edtech companies are focusing a lot on skills and ensuring that the learners are finding the right skills. But the skills will start getting certain amount of credits while you're learning, and those credits can be leveraged later for any individual to build and sort of go back into a degree program and get an additional degree. So I think those elements of collaboration is going to come in. These are early days and early start, and very soon we'll see some interesting model emerging out of this.
This is my last question to you, Mayank. How do you see NDU transform the learning landscape and the kind of changes that we could see perhaps in the skilling landscape as India reaps the benefit of the demographic dividend, while we contend with the changes brought on by tech on jobs and employability?
I think the first generation learner, the outcome is very clear because NDU provides them access at the right cost, at the right affordability, at the right sort of access level. But here are two statistics that I'll share with you, Miloni. One is, if you look at historically, about a generation or two generations or three generations back, the trade or the job of the family used to pass from one generation to another generation. If the farmer was if the father is a farmer, the son would be a farmer. If the father is in smithing, the son would be in smithing, etc. So the generation to generation job used to get transition, and your surname used to define the job that you are in. In the last generation, the shift happened. Agriculture society moved to service-led society. In today's generation, I can guarantee you that an individual will go through 6 to 7 shifts in their careers. And if they are doing so, gone are the days when you have one job for one life and you will have multiple jobs over a period of time. Second statistic that I do always when people come and join Upgrade is I ask them one question that, look, what is the ratio of the number of years of experience you have divided by number of jobs? The answer I get is a low of 2 or 3 to a high of 8 or 9, that they are in a job for 7, 8, 9 years or so. The median is 5 or 6 years. I ask the same question for the parents. The answer is 35:1 or 40:1. So in today's context, and people will shift job, you are bound to upgrade your skill on an ongoing and a consistent basis. You cannot rely on one and done philosophy. Education has to be like a polio shot that you have to, not a polio shot, but a regular sort of shot that you have to keep on going every 2 to 3 years to stay relevant. I do expect a place where things will become like a skill passport, and your passport will expire. And you will have to sort of go back to the government and say, okay, now stamp me another passport saying I'm ready to travel again. I think in that context, NDUs, the reason why I say NDU is the next UPI is because NDU's philosophy and the way it's built is to solve for lifelong learning. And in the lifelong learning context, an individual will keep on coming back to university every 3, 5, 7 years. Unfortunately, in today's context, we cannot leave our job and join a university back. And therefore, the only option for us is go back to a digital university and an online university, learn there, get ourselves skilled, go back, refresh ourselves, find the next job, work there for 5 to 7 years, skills will get redundant, go back again and get reskilled in the process. So the future is going to be very different than what we are used to. And that means that individuals will have to start learning how to invest in ourselves. If you ask any individual, any professional today, how much do you spend on your own learning? The answer may likely to be zero. But if you ask them how much have you spent for your kids' learning, there's a larger number. And the context is that I personally believe in the future, while you're doing your annual budgeting, annual planning, you will put a line item for travel, you will put a line item for health, you will put a line item for vacationing, etc. While you do not put a line item for learning, a line item for learning will come in, and that line item for learning will be dependent on how strong the NDU infrastructure is going to be in the future.
A line item for learning on every household list for the year, spurred by the transformation in jobs and the need for skills in the future of work. Thanks very much, Mayank, for sharing your thoughts on NDU and why it's the UPI moment for India.
Perfect. Thank you, Melody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.